right, welcome to the Young Turks. Jake Uger, John Idaho with you guys. Got an awesome day ahead for you guys for a number of reasons. Not about an hour, in exactly an hour, Bernie Sanders will be doing a town hall that we will be covering on the issue of climate change. Now, here's how it's going to go. We got an hour programming for you guys, as we always do. Then the town hall on climate change, including Shailene Woodley, which is fun because of another announcement I'm going to tell you about in a second. And then we are going to do live analysis for everybody right after the town hall. That's going to last about a half an hour. And Francesca Fiorentini is going to join us for that as well. And then a special members only section, further analysis, including Josh Fox, director of Gasland, will join us to do his analysis of the Bernie Sanders town hall and climate change in general. I ran into him at the Sanders Institute gathering just this weekend, as well as a lot of these folks. I'll tell you all about that in a members only post game at some point. Now, if you're thinking, well, I know, but I don't have money for membership. I hear you, brothers and sisters. Well, good news. So today we are launching free trial membership for a week. Okay.
What? Have we ever done that before?
We did it only one other time in our 16-year history. Okay, and it was for a limited time, as it is now. So the way to participate is tyt.com/holiday. So I need you to go nuts right now, or don't go nuts because it's free. It's for the normal $4.99 a month package, not the $10 package or any of the others. But everybody check it out. You get a free 7-day trial for our insider membership, and then it renews after that. So just FYI, so you know, okay? We want everybody to understand how it works. So now, other programs that we're running that have had great success, thanks to you guys. Speaking of Shailene Woodley, who's going to be in the town hall today, you guys bought her a membership. So thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it. In fact, let me try to find the person who did that if I can. And I did. Dustin LeVere bought that. Dustin, you're awesome. Appreciate it greatly. And Stephen Colbert in the Late Night Show has also sold. So that means Stephen Colbert and his entire staff, or as much of it as we could afford, will be getting. His entire staff is actually 204 people, so not his
200 people?
Yes, that's literal. So it's not his entire staff, but it is as much of his staff as we could all afford, thanks to Michael Alex. So Michael, you are awesome. Thank you for doing that. Now the Late Night Show will get to hear the Young Turks.
Nice.
So that's pretty neat. Now, still on tyt.com/amplify, where we are amplifying the progressive message. We have Sean Hannity available, Chuck Schumer available. I don't know who needs it more, Hannity or Schumer. I actually do, it's Schumer.
Yeah.
Then Chuck Todd and Meet the Press staff is on there. Nancy Pelosi is, Susan Sarandon, Jim Carrey. I ran into Susan Sarandon this weekend as well. My guess is that she would love that. And newly added, Colin Kaepernick. Wouldn't that be pretty neat to have Kaepernick and his team have TYT membership?
Yeah, but then he'll probably wonder why no one on our network has ever talked about him.
Okay, he'll get to hear about himself all the time. And C-SPAN. C-SPAN's also available. And Caroline Wilson had bought the package for Bernie Sanders. And I talked about that all weekend at the Sanders Institute gathering. And Caroline, your name was mentioned a couple of times, so thank you, appreciate that. So everybody, let's go jump in and make that happen. If you give under $1,000, it goes to journalism students. And that, according to some of the folks we've talked at the journalism schools, has been deeply appreciated. And then above $1,000 is those media and political figures that you saw a little while ago, okay? So, lots of news to get to, including our own. Ken Klippenstein with an excellent story that he broke, a really interesting one. So John, take it away.
Okay, I just want to note, Stephen Colbert needs to have somebody from TYT on. He had the Pod Save America people.
Yeah,
that's kind of the same sort of thing. You could do it. Okay, we've been around for a while.
Hopefully some of his writers and bookers have TYT membership now. Maybe they're like, wait a minute, these guys would make great guests.
I cannot believe that they have 200 people working there. It's a great show, but geez. Okay, let's move to the news then. Early this year, Donald Trump announced that he would be drastically cutting back humanitarian aid to Palestinian refugees, as he does on Twitter. He said, "We pay the Palestinians hundreds of millions of dollars a year and get no appreciation or respect. Why should we make any of these massive future payments to them?" That is a very, very mature way to express those thoughts. And it turns out that that was not just boasting. I'm sure somebody probably covered that tweet and then people told him, "Why are you just covering what he tweets?" But 2 weeks later, the US withheld $65 million of a planned $125 million payment to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. By August, the Trump administration announced that it would cut all US funding for the agency. So once again, what he says on Twitter ends up becoming reality. And what's interesting is that just 1 day before that tweet, a cable actually went out from Israel to our State Department announcing that there were concerns inside of their government about what a cut in this aid would actually do. And we know about this thanks to TYT Investigates, Ken Klippenstein doing great work here. And so first of all, let's talk a little bit about why that cut in aid actually matters. So why would you hypothetically be concerned about that? Well, in September, the World Bank warned that the economy of Gaza was in free fall, noting that half the population lives in poverty. Youth unemployment is over 70%. And according to Sarah Lee Whitson of Human Rights Watch, cutting that particular aid agency that we were talking about earlier, their assistance, medical care, and education for Palestinians will only escalate their grievances and anger, however much Trump and Netanyahu's goal is to bring them to their knees to acquiesce to giving up their rights and land. So sensitive documents coming out of Israel, we now have access to. Let's talk about a couple of little quotes from that. Speaking off the record, our contact cited particular concern with any move to reduce UNRWA funding in Gaza. He said that while the existence of UNRWA was a political poke in the eye to Israel, it nonetheless provided valuable humanitarian relief to Gaza. And COGAT, that's the coordinator of government activities in the territories, has long held the view that economic stability in Gaza is linked to its political and security stability. So COGAT is an element of the Israeli military, actually. The Ministry of Defense, I should say. And so they're assessing that Gaza's security situation will continue to worsen as the economic situation progressively deteriorates. This individual highlighted continued rocket activity from Gaza and said the dire economic situation was placing significant pressures on the general population. And so Donald Trump likes to say that this aid is just some optional thing that we give, no consequences. You might imagine that Israel might not even be in favor of it, but at least some components of their military and government are worried that worsening humanitarian situations inside of the Palestinian territories could be bad for Israel as well.
So one way of looking at this is, of course, if you make the situation in Gaza unbearable, uninhabitable, well, then you're going to leave very little choice to the inhabitants of Gaza. Now you might say, oh, it doesn't matter. They should never do anything. They should just keep bowing their heads. I hear you, and that's a fine position to have, but that's not the conversation. The conversation is about what are they actually gonna do, not what you want them to do, okay? And so, but in political circles, it is nowhere near enough, of course. We live in a black and white world when it comes to politics, so the answer is either you crush them and then they say, okay, we submit. We'll get back to that in a second as to how tenable that is, right? Or we give them some level of money, et cetera, and I guess the right wing would say we're appeasing them, and then the left wing would say no, we're going towards peace. Now the reality is, even though the right wing government of Israel under Netanyahu says no, we don't want you to give them aid, secretly they're telling, and because of this, we now know, telling the U.S. government, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't take away the aid. Ignore what we're saying about not giving them aid. It's a poke in the eye, wink, okay? But the reality is, if you take that aid away, it's gonna make an unstable situation even more unstable, which is terrible for Israel. The guy talking to our embassy is from the Ministry of Defense for Israel. He's not overly concerned about the Palestinians, that's somebody else's problem. He's concerned about how it affects Israel, okay? And he's saying, it's gonna be terribly unstable, don't do that. So it's interesting on a couple of fronts. One is the different message you get behind the scenes as opposed to what you see on television, where Netanyahu and Trump come out and go, oh yeah, God damn it, don't give the Palestinians anything, why don't we give them anything for? And Trump apparently, maybe you would think to his credit, means it, goes, yeah, goddamn, what do I care about the Palestinians? Let's crush them. Meanwhile, the Israeli government's like, Okay, good theater. Okay, but let's be careful here.
Yeah.
And John's right, and Ken mentions this in his story. This guy that is quoted by our diplomats in the embassy in Israel doesn't necessarily speak for the entirety of the Israeli government either, and neither does Netanyahu. But there are significant branches within the Ministry of Defense that go, no, we can't cut the aid. Really bad idea. Again, not concerned about the Palestinians as much as they are for Israel, because clearly, if you're a thinking person, it is actually a complicated matrix, and there are reverberating consequences. In the black and white world of the right wing, there are never any consequences. Nothing's ever complicated. You just crush people and you move on. So finally, I want to come back to that for a second. So the idea is to make them acquiesce and submit, the Palestinians. Really? I mean, do they really think, submit to what? I mean, they already submit to the occupation. And any effort to fight against the occupation, of course, if it's violent, is condemned by everyone, including us, obviously, right? But even if it's diplomatic effort or an economic effort, Israel screams from the rooftops, unacceptable! No, so I already know that part. But what else do you want them to submit to? Just like a one-state rule forever? Or do you want them to come out and do a public statement? Okay, everybody's broke, nobody's got jobs, we're all crushed. Okay, we submit to Netanyahu for the rest of our lives. We don't even want a state anymore. We just want to be ruled by you. Is that what they want? Is that what they're expecting?
That could be.
Yeah, I mean, and that is the insanity of the conversation we're having now. So now some on the left are so frustrated, they're going, yeah, goddamn right, one state solution. Let's have a democracy in the Middle East where we have a one state solution and everybody votes, the Palestinians and the Israelis. See how you like them apples. Well, the reality is for me, I never wavered from the two-state solution, and I don't like either one of those apples. I don't like the apple where the Palestinians outvote the Israelis, and I don't like it when Israel permanently occupies the Palestinians. And not only is it deeply, deeply immoral, and yes, it is immoral. And for God's sake, if you care about Israel, get them on the moral high ground, not the moral low ground, which is exactly where they are after many brutal decades of occupation of another people, right? But yes, it's crushing for the Palestinians, but it's terrible for the Israelis as well. It's got to be a two-state solution. And so I do not accept that we need to have a permanent occupation. And if you do, besides the morality of it, if you only care about Israel's security, you couldn't give a damn about any Palestinian or their lives or their kids. Okay, it turns out it's gonna turn out terrible for Israel's security, and they know it. So thank you, Donald Trump, for making a situation worse as usual. And even if you're a right winger in America or Israel, wake up. Even the Netanyahu government knows there's only a certain limit as to how much we can crush these people before there are consequences for us.
Yeah, there's a couple angles on this that I really love. Again, we have to acknowledge that this is a view from inside of the government. Obviously it's not their public view, and it might not be the majority view. But it seems so reasonable that if you beat these people down and leave them with no jobs and no electricity in many cases, medicine's hard to come by, food is hard to come by, all of that, that's gonna be bad, like security-wise, not just economically, while you're maintaining a blockade against them and stopping people from sending in the sorts of things that would reinforce the situation and make it more stable. That is a weird thing that on the one hand, you call for other people to effectively, through aid organizations, circumvent the blockade while maintaining it and stopping them from getting into a generally better situation. At the same time, I guess there's three things. Donald Trump was the guy that was gonna come in and he was gonna fix this whole thing, right? That's what we were told. Or Jared Kushner, I guess. He's an expert on that. He went to a conference or something. People actually believe that. That's absurd. Look at what effect he's been able to have in just a limited period of time. So that's amazing. And then in terms of what we get like incensed about as a culture and what there's actually action for, Donald Trump cut the aid. God only knows, like we see this number, 65 million, it'll end up being the full 125 million will be cut. In future years, you won't have it until you get sensible government again. So what effect does that actually have on individual Palestinians? I don't know for sure, it's difficult to know, but we know it's gonna be bad for them. Is it crazy to think that it will result in deaths? That people will actually die, not have access to food, not have access to medicine, things like that? I don't think that's crazy at all. And yet, thankfully Ken found this. I hear the Daily Beast picked it up, that's great. There will be a little bit of talk about it. Think about like proportionally, Last week, Mark Lamont Hill gave a speech. He already lost one job, and they're coming for his academic job as well. He didn't cut aid to any group. He didn't lead to people dying in the streets or anything like that. He might actually lose his position. Donald Trump, it's just something he tweeted about and we move on. Yeah. It's a ridiculous world that we live in.
So on Mark Lamont Hill, what happened? I thought the right wing was in favor of free speech. Not so much.
Not so much.
I told you, they're liars. They never cared about free speech. They use our Constitution as a gimmick to actually make money for themselves and to fight against democracy. If they cared about free speech, they would be up in arms over what happened to Mark Lamont Hill. Instead, they are celebrating in the streets. If I was Trump, I told you there was thousands of in New Jersey celebrating after that decision, okay?
Yeah, and the intellectual dark web would have said something, but it was a 3-day weekend. They just weren't there.
Yeah,
it's too bad, really.
And by the way, I saw a tweet from Dave Rubin celebrating. What happened, Mr. Free Speech? What happened? Turns out you were a terrible, outrageous liar all along. All along. We defended Ben Shapiro being able to speak on college campuses. I defended Megyn Kelly saying she shouldn't be fired from NBC for her comments. We have been perfectly consistent, whereas they are frauds of the highest order. And the minute they get a chance, someone disagrees with us. Get him, fire him from everything, right? And it is free speech, yes, is a governmental issue. And yes, employers can make any decision they like, as we have said consistently throughout. But it is not a decision that we support because we support the concept of a free marketplace of ideas and speech. In fact, it is progressives who fight for that and conservatives who hate the idea of a free marketplace of ideas because their ideas generally suck. They are deeply, deeply unpopular. That's why they don't like it when there are consequences usually to their actions. Okay, now, back to this. I got Ken Klippenstein, wonderful job. This is why we did TYT Investigates, and I want to thank every single Young Turks viewer that contributed to that campaign. Now, yes, it is being reported in other outlets now that Donald Trump has made the situation worse, and now we know it because we did research, we did our jobs, and Klippenstein went and did a Freedom of Information request and found the information from our ministry, basically our diplomats in Israel, and now you know that in fact, and this is really important to know, even Israel is concerned about their own security because of how badly the United States of America and Donald Trump is treating the Palestinians.
Yeah, imagine if we had like 10 Kens.
I know, that would be amazing. One thing at a time, guys. Yeah. And look, tyt.com/join. Because membership builds Homo Progressives, it also builds our investigative unit going forward, and that's how we make this possible. So you could actually get real opinions here based on facts, and that is disciplined and principled.
Yeah.
And so great job by Ken in breaking this story.
Yeah, the only issue I have is that you mispronounced my name. It's not Join, it's John. tyt.com/John.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. I have a feeling that you're gonna love this story.
Which one? The next
one?
one?
The Wisconsin story.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's move on to this. Wisconsin voters chose the Democrat in last month's elections for both governor and attorney general, giving the Democratic Party new powers to shape the future of that state, at least hypothetically. That is if the last-ditch effort of Republicans to strip those positions of all of their authority doesn't actually go through, but the Republicans are really making a go at it. So here are some of the things that the Republicans are trying to do to get rid of the power in those positions before the Democrats can actually take those positions. Among other measures, the bill they're talking about would take away the governor's ability to approve major decisions by Attorney General-elect Josh Kaul, who ousted Republican Brad Schmel in the November midterm, granting this power to Republican lawmakers instead. It would give the legislature, not Kaul, the authority to determine how money is allocated from court settlements. Lawmakers would also be granted the authority to intervene in legal challenges to state laws, including by hiring private attorneys to oversee the litigation instead of the attorney general. That particular power, if they were to take that over, would drastically change the future challenges to Wisconsin's approach to the ACA in that state. So there's other aspects too, but those are some of the big ones.
Yeah, so let me begin the rage, and then we'll give you the details on more of the changes. This is the Republicans, as usual, not believing in democracy and exposing their hypocrisy in one fell swoop. So They did this in North Carolina as well. They are now considering it in Michigan. Whenever they have a state where Democrats have won the governorship and other important races, but they still control the legislatures, the Republicans are going in and going, all right, strip the power right away of the governor. And now in this case, the attorney general as well. Just get rid of their power, that way we'll maintain power no matter what the people of Wisconsin voted. Who cares? Democracy. It's just a gimmick. They don't believe in it at all. And so why doesn't the press call it out? In this case, it's super obvious. There's not a single blue state that says, oh, we got a Republican governor, Phil Scott in Maryland, Larry Hogan in Maryland, okay?
That's not a legislature, this is a legislature.
Okay, that's right. So Hogan in Maryland, well, why don't they strip away his power since they've got legislatures that are controlled by the Democrats? I'll get back to that idea because I think they should do that right now. I do, I'll explain that in a second, okay? But the press calls it even. Now, why? Because they're stuck in the 1990s. For some reason, Washington got stuck in a time bubble, and they still think that everything is like, oh, all politics is local. They said that was from the 1970s. Yeah, in the 1970s, there was no internet. That's why all politics was local, right? All politics is local. No, it's not. That's totally outdated. Oh, everybody's bipartisan and roots for the country over party. Now, there's good reason to say that in the past. I know it hasn't been that way for so long, especially for millennials who think, no way, when have the Republicans ever thought that? No, they did. In fact, George H.W. Bush, who passed away recently, wrote a letter to Bill Clinton, and I want to read you a part of it because I think it gives you a sense of how Washington perceives the Republican Party, because this was their past. So he wrote a letter where just to Bill Clinton and left it at the Oval Office. And remember, Bill Clinton defeated him in the election, defeated him. And he said, there will be very tough times made even more difficult by criticism you may not think is fair. I'm not a very good one to give advice, but just don't let the critics discourage you or push you off course. You will be our president, and he underlined R, when you read this note. I wish you well, I wish your family well. Your success is our country's success. I am rooting hard for you. Good luck, George H.W. Bush. See, now that is a magnanimous guy. It wasn't just a transition of power, it was a transition of power to a guy he lost to. And it was a tough campaign. And it's not like Bill Clinton was overly fair to George H.W. Bush in that campaign, but he believed in the country, Bush did, okay? And so he really did root for Bill Clinton. But that is not today's Republican Party. Today's Republican Party doesn't give a damn about the other side. In fact, wants to crush the other side. Fair or unfair, cheating or not cheating. You want to block voters? Great, let's block voters nonstop. You win, despite the fact that we blocked voters, took away voting booths, did voter purges, etc. Then we strip away your power. They will cheat under any and all circumstances. And that is what they're doing now. And the mainstream media is failing the country by not pointing out that it is one-sided. And now to the hypocrisy. Mitch McConnell blocked Obama's Supreme Court nomination, the nominee that he picked, Merrick Garland, for over a year, saying, hey, we gotta let the people decide. I care about democracy, wink. But wait, the people did decide, that's why they elected Obama as president, and he gets to make the decision.
Yeah, but only twice. They only elected him twice.
Yeah, he's like, nope, we have to wait 14 months and let the people decide. Well, in this case, the people in Wisconsin decided they want Tony Evers as their governor. The Republicans like, we were lying. The whole time we were lying. We don't care about democracy. We don't care about the people deciding. No, we're gonna strip away the powers of the guys that you elected. That's who the Republican Party is.
Yeah, the Merrick Garland thing. It is amazing to look back on that and see the way that it was covered. The minimal outrage that was expressed at that historic theft. Let's talk a little bit more about some of what the Republicans are attempting to do. The bill would also limit early voting to 2 weeks ahead of election rather than 6 weeks in some parts of the state currently. So not a big fan of elections, which is sort of understandable considering that they didn't win the last set.
And it's because they're authoritarian by nature. You know, they have this stupid thing about like, oh, you know, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Why do you hate democracy so much? We're a democratic republic, the republic where we have representative democracy. That's the point of the republic, is representative democracy. But if you think you're not gonna win elections going forward, then you hate democracy. They don't care about the country, and they hate our system of government. All they care about is power.
Yeah, well, similarly, I would say that their love for the Electoral College certainly has spiked recently. I don't know how attached they were to it a couple of decades ago. Okay, the proposed legislation would also change the timing of the presidential primary in Wisconsin, a strategy Democrats say that is aimed at reducing voter turnout to improve the re-election odds of a conservative state Supreme Court justice. So he's gonna be up for re-election at that point. Rather than holding on an election date where there will be a lot of people voting, they wanna change it to a time when there will be less interest in the election, less likely that some challenger will be able to get out enough people to actually win that. So they're looking a couple of years in advance in that change and willing to completely manipulate state law to potentially, maybe, save the career of one judge a couple years in the future. That is pretty amazing.
Okay.
By the way, really fast, in mid-November, Governor Walker said he approved of this idea and other plans to limit the authority of his Democratic successor. We don't know for sure if he would have been okay with it when he came in as governor to limit it. Just on the way out, he's okay with it.
Yeah, interesting how that works. All right, so look, you should always be checking out facebook.com/rebelhq. Why? Because whenever there's a progressive event, we try to cover it, and we did cover portions of this, the protest against this move today in Wisconsin, partly led by Randy Bryce, Iron Stash.
Nice.
And so, and whenever there's an event like this, like I said, facebook.com/rebelhq. Now, my bold proposal that we do likewise. Too many Democrats, not too many, almost all of them, my entire lifetime, have always said, oh, that's not fair, it's offensive, it's objectionable, it's not right, and then they leave it at that. No, it's time to strike back. So I do believe that Democratic legislatures that have Republican governors should immediately look to strip those governors of almost all of their power. Now, do I want that to be permanent? No, of course not. Do I believe that that's the right way of running things? Of course not. But the Republicans don't care about anything but power. So asking them to be nice is borderline stupid. They don't care about nice. They find that laughable. So when we object to their plans, they're amused. You think we're gonna move them by asking them, by pleading with them, by saying that we're offended? No, you only move them through raw power. So in all those blue states where you have a Republican governor, you should immediately strip them of as much power as you could possibly imagine. Get rid of it all until they cry uncle. And they go, okay. Yeah, of course, we meant democracy. We meant democracy, just kidding about stripping away power in North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Until you do likewise, they're never, ever gonna listen to you. It's gonna continue to be one-sided. The press is going to help them by calling it even and equating lies and fascism with truth and democracy. So until then, strike back. Strike back right now. Make sure that those Republican governors in the Northeast have no power at all. And then go, how you like them apples? Okay, now you wanna sit down and negotiate? And so we do this right? If not, you know what? We can go further. You like taking away voting booths? I don't know why there's any voting booths in Republican areas in California and New York. I mean, look, I'm sure there's very good reasons why they all had to be moved into blue areas of California and New York, just like they do in Republican states. Very good reasons. Strike back immediately until you break them. That's the answer. Now, will anybody do that? Of course not. Because the Democrats are soft. And the Republicans will strip away every power they can, and they don't care. One side cares about democracy, the other side doesn't. So that's why the Republicans constantly take democracy hostage, because they know we care too much about it.
First break?
All right. I'm revved up, as you can tell. Yes, we will take our first break. When we come back, well, man, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh, that's a hell of a question. And he has been charged to some degree, in a matter of speaking, accused of some sexual impropriety. I'm curious what your take on it is. I'm gonna have a unique take as usual, okay? So buckle up, and then Is the Pope a good guy or a bad guy? We have some conflicting evidence. All that when we return. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Let me read names of folks who gave to the Amplify program. Chris Toomey from Lake Charles, Louisiana. Thank you, Chris. Appreciated 3 memberships to.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Journalism students, and by the way, when you get 150 or above, you're going to get an exclusive TYT t-shirt for this campaign. And like with the investigative reporters, when I see you guys with those t-shirts, I know you made stories like the one we just reported possible. That was totally you. Thank you for doing that. Catherine Gaeta from Oregon, same thing. Catherine, you'll be getting a t-shirt. Umberto Moriara from San Francisco just gave $500, so he's also going on the honor roll on tyt.com. Umberto, you are awesome, thank you. Scott McGregor from Wisconsin, of all places, you will be getting a t-shirt as well. Raymond Rogers from Bayville, New Jersey, also getting a t-shirt. And then get a load of this. Adam Westbrook did it again. $2,500, Sean Hannity package gone. Okay.
Damn.
So Adam's also the guy who named this desk the Triptych desk. He's in LA. I even ran into him in the street once. Adam, thank you, brother. Really, really appreciate it. It helps the show. It builds home of progressives, and it gets the message out to other members of the media. And so that's why we thought it was a win-win for everybody. tyt.com/amplify to participate. There's so many more out there on that. And then, of course, if you haven't joined yet, this is a perfect time because we're doing free trials. It's a free trial for a week, and then it renews after that. And renews meaning you get charged after that. So if you want to get out of it, make sure that you do. tyt.com/holiday. Okay. There's and speaking of membership signups. So I smoked this guy. He's gonna have to try to catch back up now that he's back on the show. That's what you get for taking a vacation or being off the air for any reason.
So stupid of me.
That's right. On the other hand, I can't, Anna keeps pulling ahead. I don't know how she's doing it. I brought it down to under 40 and she's back up to a 50-person lead. So tyt.com/jank to sign up for membership, okay, for God's sake.
Anyway, she's got alligator blood.
She does, bless her heart. I've got to tell you 2 other things real quick. One of the things you're gonna get for membership is we did a special show for the members called Hostmates. It's a takeoff of the Newlywed Game where we paired up different hosts, me and Anna versus John and Brooke versus Michael and Ben. Wait till you see it, guys. We already shot it.
It was very funny.
It was hilarious.
Very funny.
Can we guess what each other is gonna say? You're gonna love that show, okay?
It's one of the most fun special events we've ever done.
tyt.com/join to become a member, and then finally, you need to panic over the shop because in order to get your gifts by December 25th, You have to buy them by December 5th for us to be able to guarantee delivery. And we are guaranteed delivery by December 25th for US domestic orders only, okay? So shoptyt.com, December 5th, obviously a couple of days left before that. So make sure that you buy off there for your Christmas presents. Or apparently, as Fox News thinks we say, for your holiday presents. Okay. All right. We'll read comments later after the Bernie Sanders town hall. Let's keep going for now.
Okay. If you're not terrified that marijuana in gummy form could kill you and your family, then clearly you haven't been watching Fox News recently. A kid in Florida brought some gummies to his school, and this is how Fox and Friends covered it.
We ended up with 6 12-year-old children who overdosed on Green Hornet gummies full of marijuana.
Right. Sheriff, do we know, did this kid know they were marijuana based, or did he think it's just candy? And if so, did he take him to the gym class because it's like, hey, look what I got? Or was it just an accident?
No, it wasn't an accident at all. He knew exactly what it was. It was a complete package, 100 milligrams of gummies. They're divided up or segmented into 10 individual doses for adults, sold legally in California, and somehow it made its way here.
I love when just sold legally in California is said as the ultimate scare tactic.
By the way, it's also sold legally in many other places like Colorado, so I don't know why California gets the quote-unquote blame. But I will generally take credit for the edibles in California. Okay. So, look, as one of the biggest edible advocates in America, I think that they are generally wonderful. But we're not like Fox News, so let me be clear that should you be careful? Of course, the world's not black and white. Either edibles are awesome and everybody should have them, okay? Or they're dangerous and they kill people and no one should have them. The reality is, I am a little worried about all the candy and the cookies because kids and other people can accidentally take them. In fact, I got news recently that a woman who's a little older ate a cookie at someone else's house, not knowing that it was an edible, and obviously she'd never smoked before, she'd never done anything before, and she freaked out and she had to go to the hospital. Now, was she okay? Yes, I told her like give it a couple of hours. I know she's gonna want to go, and bless her heart, let her go, right? And she reported back that she began to see pink elephants. Okay, which is possible, and hence the reason to take edibles.
Yes.
But they must be clearly labeled, and generally speaking, they are. But sometimes
those are.
Yeah, but sometimes people do leave it out, and you really should be very careful about that, because if kids take it, or even people who are unfamiliar with it, they're gonna get freaked out, and it could have trouble. But do people die from it? No. There's never been a reported case of anyone ever dying from marijuana. Now, you wouldn't know that if you watch Fox News. It seems, oh my God, ODs and everybody, they go there. You'd think that there was a massacre at the school. Oh no, that's the guns that you advocate for. That's what creates massacres at schools. But they're trying to tell you, no, the real danger is pot in the schools.
Gummies.
It's gummy bears, they're coming for your kids.
Yeah, you gotta label things. I mean, I've told the story about when my friend left out a tray of brownies and I ate a bunch. I got higher than I've ever been in my life. It was a bit of a disaster, but it wasn't labeled, it should have been. And it was kind of fun in the end. And so here's the thing, we've been sort of alluding to their worries about death coming. Well, we've got 2 more videos for you. In this next one, before they're concerned about death, they're first concerned about advertising. Why is it that they're advertising to kids, as you'll see?
Sheriff, I'm thinking 12 years old. We were 6th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade then. I mean, you're just learning about life. No one's even thinking about, you haven't even kissed a boy at that point. How in the world are you seeing more of this where kids, not even teenagers, they're 12, where they're getting their hands on drugs?
But think about it for a minute. If this is truly medicine for the very sickest, why are we packaging it for children? Why are we calling it Green Hornet? And it stung all of those kids really hard. And by the way, we have stung the one kid that sold it with 6 felony counts.
It is difficult to be a guest on Fox and Friends and be the person that says the stupidest thing, but he managed to. One of the most disingenuous arguments I've ever heard in my life. If it's legitimate medicine, why are we marketing it to kids? First of all, they didn't market to kids, they called it Green Hornet, okay? It's green because everything marijuana related is green. Okay, a nice hornet joke, I guess. But that doesn't mean that it's for kids, okay? They're marketing it to adults in a fun way, like we market everything in the world. And it's also medicinal. It can be used for medicinal things. It's for both things, actually. And him pretending that you only get to use it in one way. Either it helps your grandma with her glaucoma, or you can have fun with it on a Saturday night. You gotta choose one, America. It's ridiculous.
I love that he set up that it stung those kids line. You know, he thought of it and he's like, oh, I gotta say it when we're out. It didn't work, brother. And hey, from one bad joke guy to another. Okay, now I'm not glass house and all that, but it was super corny.
Yeah.
Anyways, now I don't think they do it anymore, and I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember, but Exxon used to have a tiger in their ads, and the tiger would come out of the gas tank, and it was, and Frosted Flakes also is a Tony the Tiger, and they're great, right? I can't believe they're trying to sell gas to kids with a tiger mascot like that.
Yeah.
Exxon.
And this is really bad of the weed companies because like cigarette companies would never use cartoons to sell cigarettes potentially to appeal to kids.
Like a cartoon of a camel or something.
Maybe. No, it's just
and what conservatives were thrilled with and defended for the entirety of the time that the cigarette companies were doing that.
Do you want us to, like, I haven't done this. I don't know that this exists. Do you want me to Google guns advertised to kids to see what I come up with? You don't think there's anything out there in America? Some cartoons,
or just
pink guns?
Just take a look at any of Sacha Baron Cohen's skits from his recent Showtime show, where the conservatives couldn't wait to market the guns to kids and toddlers.
Exactly.
A teddy bear where you pull the string and it fires a bullet into whoever's on the other side. That was literal. Okay.
Yes, I remember. Okay, one more video for you.
But no one talks about this. THC is addicting. People I know so many people, they say they were told one thing and they end up getting addicted to it. And that's an addicting substance. There is a price to pay for pot.
There absolutely is a price to pay for pot. You know, I spent my entire adult life in law enforcement, and a lot of it investigating traffickers of drugs. And it's not a minor nonviolent felony. It's ruining families and killing people every day across the United States. And we stand here in denial, thinking that it's not a gateway drug to drugs that's killing
you don't start
people.
on cocaine. You probably start with marijuana, and it leads to other things, right?
That's absolutely right. And still today, we have a meth problem across this state and country. If someone's in possession of meth, they're in possession of marijuana because it kind of cuts the edge of the meth. And then they use the marijuana and the meth and they go out and kill themselves or overdose or kill someone else.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes. Brian Kilmeade, has he ever smoked a single bit of weed? Has he ever, it's an addictive, everybody just getting addicted to it. There are very addictive things in this country. Yes, there is social addiction. You can be habituated to things and stuff like that. But on the list of addictive substances, marijuana has got to be placed very low. And it's not killing people constantly. It's not selling or using marijuana is not a violent crime. And look, the most important thing is if someone out there, maybe you live in a state that hasn't legalized marijuana yet, and you might see advertisements, and every time that they go to their ballot measure or something like that, you're gonna have the fear campaign to scare you into not legalizing it. And they will tell you that your kids are gonna have a gummy and they're gonna die. That's not actually true. Judge Frances Young, back I think it was 1999, wrote in one of her decisions, a smoker would theoretically have to consume nearly 1,500 pounds of marijuana within about 15 minutes to induce a lethal response, which is difficult. They did it on Mythbusters once and lost a host, but it was difficult. They had to set up a whole thing. I'm kidding, they didn't do that. You can't do that, it's ridiculous. And in order to fatally overdose on a cannabis edible, a person would have to eat over half a gram of THC per kilogram of body weight. According to a recent study, for the average adult male, he would have to consume over 1.5 ounces of pure THC, which I have heard is more than a marijuana user is expected to consume in their lifetime in the form of edibles.
Yes, and so last thing here. First of all, I did appreciate the tutorial on meth. Oh, you're gonna wanna cut it with a little bit of marijuana. I'm like, oh, things I did not know, luckily. Okay, by the way, don't do meth. But the final thing is, yeah, there is a gateway drug, to be fair. It's called OxyContin.
Yes.
And it's a gateway drug that is actually killing people. First of all, it doesn't even need to be a gateway. A huge percentage of people who die in this country from being addicted to opioids just die from the legal pharmaceutical drugs. And then another percentage die because it's a gateway drug to heroin, and heroin kills them. And if heroin doesn't kill them, fentanyl kills them. So the idea of a gateway drug is true. It just happens to be for the pharmaceuticals that are perfectly legal in America and that have spent a great deal of money bribing politicians. Number one donors to political figures is the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
Why? Because they sell a drug that is deeply addictive, does kill people, but they just got the politicians to make it legal.
Yeah.
Marijuana is none of those things. As usual with Fox News, take what you hear and turn it upside down. It's the exact opposite of what's true.
Yeah. If you did have like a murderous person on meth, wouldn't you want them to take the edge off a little bit?
I
That sounds like it would be helpful, actually. Okay, let's move on to one more story. I think that's probably all we're gonna be able to fit in. Well-known scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson is facing sexual misconduct allegations from 3 women now. This is coming from last Friday. I want to give you a rundown of the different allegations. One woman, Tachia Ahmet, says that Neil deGrasse Tyson drugged and raped her when the two were students at the University of Texas, Austin. Another, Ashley Watson, says he made unwanted advances when she was his assistant, causing her to quit her job. A third, Caitlin Allers, says she was felt up by Tyson at a party in 2009. So you have 3 different women. 2 of these sets of allegations are new as of just a few days ago. One has been known about for a number of years at this point. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about each of the sets of allegations. So Ashley Watson, who was one of the aides on a show that he was filming, was asked to come to his apartment for some one-on-one time, a wine and cheese thing, he said, and she did end up going. In his apartment, assistant Ashley Watson said he told her that as human beings, we all need release, and asked if there were any releases that she needed. Shortly after, she said she went to leave, and he asked to show her what he called a Native American handshake, which involved clasping their hands together and finding the pulse on the other person's wrist while looking into each other's eyes. She broke it off after about 10 seconds and stood up to leave. So that's the first allegation. Now, he has since, a couple of days later, he posted on Facebook addressing all of these allegations. And so for each of these, I wanna give you a little bit of what he said in his defense. In his Facebook post, Dr. Tyson described the handshake as one he uses in appreciation of people with whom I've developed new friendships, he says. He said that at work, Ms. Watson freely offered hugs, which he typically rejected, but that on a few occasions, he clumsily declared, if I hug you, I might just want more. My intent was to express restrained but genuine affection. So that is the first and most recent of the allegations coming from earlier this year, actually.
Okay, so let's break this down. First of all, the source is enormously relevant. So if I see a report in the New York Times that is different than if I see a report in an alt-right blog, okay? And in this case, the report is coming from Pathos, which is a magazine apparently dedicated to faith and spirituality. And my guess is they are not allies of Neil deGrasse Tyson. So they generally hate science. And so they're like, oh, he's a prominent scientist. Hey, look at this thing I found out about a handshake that he did, okay? So now, hold on, let's judge the merits of it, okay? But yes, I do have a grain of salt on this because of the source, I do. So if you think that, no, even if Roger Stone gave it to me, I would trust it immediately and think it's absolutely true, that's your call to make, but I wouldn't, okay? So, and context matters. Is it people who have fought for women before? Is it people who have fought against women before, etc.? Okay, now, let's take them one by one. There's a tattoo.
Okay, well, I can go through the other allegations if you want.
And then I want to give you my sense of how legitimate it is. And I know that people will say, oh, you can't do that. well, I am going to do that. So let's give you the details and I'll give you what I think. Real
Okay,
quick.
so stepping back in time, the second allegation comes from Caitlin Allers, an associate professor of physics and astronomy at Bucknell University. She was at a party with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, she has a tattoo of the solar system stretching from an arm to her collarbone. She said Dr. Tyson was, quote, obsessed with whether the tattoo included Pluto. She says he looked for Pluto and followed the tattoo into my dress, she told the website, describing it as uncomfortable and creepy. Dr. Tyson, in his message on Facebook, noted that Pluto had been declared no longer a planet just 3 years earlier, so whether people include it or not in their tattoos is of great interest to me. And then, as we alluded to, there was if you're going back the farthest, back in 1984, Tachia Ahmet, a graduate student that he says on Facebook that he had dated briefly. He says that they did have sex. He doesn't remember an incident like this, but she alleges that she took a drink and when she, it made her pass out. When she came to, he was having sex with her. That's what she says.
Okay, so first on Pluto. So do I challenge that the person was uncomfortable? I do not challenge that at all. That is their decision to make, and she thought it was creepy, etc. Is this something that you fire someone over, that they wanted to look at a tattoo of a Pluto on someone's shoulder? It makes it seem like, oh my God, under their dress, etc. No. It's stretched to her collarbone, and she says, yes, it's on my shoulder. Okay. Your call to make too. You could say, hey, you know what? No, zero tolerance, and I judge everyone 100%, no matter what the severity is. You want to look at somebody's shoulder, you're gone, you're fired. You can make that call. Well, I wouldn't make that call.
I don't know if anyone's making that call.
Okay, I don't know.
I don't think anyone's saying that he should be fired for it.
Okay, over this stuff? No.
No, over that particular one.
Okay, so I'm going one by one. Okay, so number two. Look, guys, it's the reason I break this down, even though almost everyone will criticize me. The right wing will, and probably the left wing will. How dare you? You can't do relativity. Yes, you can. Attempted rape is way worse than seeing someone's shoulder. Al Franken had a lot of different accusations of different varying degrees, and it should be taken very seriously. One of them was, as he was taking a picture, he put his hand on the person's waist. I don't know where else you put the hand. That's not a thing. Now, that doesn't mean none of the other things are true or important or serious, right? So let's go to charge number two here. So the woman who worked under him. Well, now we got a different situation here, and she felt uncomfortable. So, she seems very genuine. So I take that super seriously. Now, whether you want to fire him over is a good question, because the only thing physical he did was do a handshake, and he says. And for now, I don't think that she's on the record disputing this at all, but I definitely want to hear her out on it. He says, the next day I told her, oh my God, I didn't know it made you uncomfortable. I'm so sorry. And then she accepted that apology, but she was uncomfortable enough to leave. So that's a serious matter, okay? But he never did anything more physical than a handshake. Again, your call to make, I'm just telling you what happened, right? But he did invite her over, the whole wine and inviting her over. I can see how you think that's creepy. I totally get it.
And that you'd be uncomfortable working there in the future.
Yes, and then Charlie Rose did similar things, but Charlie Rose would then take it to the next step, and he would come out of the shower naked. Now, none of that is alleged for Neil deGrasse Tyson. Again, uncomfortable situation. He immediately rectifies it and did nothing but a handshake. Okay, it's up to these folks, okay? And then finally, the rape allegation is super serious. As serious as it gets. Now, how do we judge that? If he was up for the Supreme Court, you know what I'd say? Do an FBI investigation and do it for long enough until we figure it out. Because if he did actually rape her, I wouldn't want him on the Supreme Court. I wouldn't want him on Cosmos. I wouldn't want him on anything, okay? Now, he's not in a situation like this. I don't know how the employer investigates an allegation that old. It is very similar to the Bill Cosby allegation.
Yeah.
Did they have the same MO from all that time ago, or was that in the news a lot?
I'm not qualified.
I have no idea. I know I'm not, and I'm saying that totally serious. I have no idea, right? But it is an allegation from a long time ago, and I don't know how an employer deals with that. And all of this in a publication that probably despises Neil deGrasse Tyson, just for context.
Okay.
Okay, we got to go. Bernie Sanders town hall is next. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.